Quiet dogs. Okay. I don't really have my own intro phrase or anything funny or catchy. I just kind of wing it and it ends up being something. My hair look good? The graph's not shiny enough to tell. Hello everyone. Frick, that sucked. Hey guys, Jack Dice here with Obsessed Fishing, and welcome back to another video, another tournament video in my series Up and Coming. This was from April 2019 on Kerr Lake on the North Carolina-Virginia border, and this is my video of how that tournament went down. First off, let's break down the playing field and the time of year and the lake that I was fishing on. Now the Kerr Lake is a large lake, kind of an upland style impoundment, a lot of creeks, a lot of channels, a lot of points, and it's 50,000 acres. And what's really nice about this lake is I've actually done fairly well in this lake in the past, and it tends to be a very good pattern lake. And so usually what you figure out, how you get your first bite can be critical for duplicating it all throughout the lake. So I was able to come down and practice for about a day and a half, and in that day and a half, found a few things, but it was a little bit slower than I was expecting. Caught one or two quality fish the first day of practice, close to take off, but it was just one or two. But I knew that the quality lived down there. I fished down there before, and I usually don't get a lot of bites, but when I do, they tend to be better quality. But I usually struggle to get a lot of bites down there. So I knew that the creeks farther up the lake were where my comfort zone was at, and so I checked those. But even though the fishing was kind of slow, but I managed to figure something out, and I found this one little cut of a creek where the water was actually surprisingly deep. Even though you went back, it was very narrow, and you went back a little ways, the water still was almost up against the bank, was almost 3, then it would drop into 5 or 6 foot really quickly. And the water actually during this event had actually dropped a little. And so in my mind, the banks that still had water on them that were a little bit steeper, yet still in protected pockets, seemed to be critical. You know, this is April, we're getting really close to the spawn, but the water temperature and the moon phase and the length of the days just weren't quite there. The fish were not quite ready to spawn, and that water dropping really was kind of hurting that bite. The idea of them moving up shallow, except for in this one pocket I found way up the lake. And so for the rest of practice, I shook off a bunch of fish in that pocket, and so I spent the rest of practice looking around, trying to find more pockets like it. And I was only able to find 1 or 2 others in that creek that were like it. You would fish all kinds of banks with the same baits, and that on that one pocket I shook off half a dozen fish. You go another hour and fish stuff that looked kind of like it and not get a bite. And so while I was happy to have a place where I could shake off some fish, you know, it's a long run in my small boat, and it also, you know, when you have a long run in a slower boat like mine, the chances are somebody else has found those fish. So coming into the event, I was excited because it was a lake. This is a lake that I do well on. I'm excited to fish here. And because of that, I fish with an open mind here, because again, it's a pattern lake. I try to fish on conditions and not history too much, and I was going into the tournament, that was my goal, is I wanted to have a good event, obviously, but to do that, I thought that I needed to stay adaptive and not put all my eggs, not put all my hope in just a few fish that I'd shook off way up the lake. I was just gonna try to go with the flow and see what the day had.
Go Caps. You a hockey fan?
No, I'm not.
Oh man, you're missing out.
So, morning dawns. That's a color of a roboworm. That's a good color. So, day 1 dawns. Wait, it's the only day of the tournament. So what am I saying here? Anyway, the first day starts, and I had a decision to make. Do I run all the way up immediately to those fish that I'd shaken off way up the lake, or do I stay close to start? And I was kind of playing with the decision in my mind, but we had a cloudy, foggy morning, and I knew that low light could really help a reaction bait bite. And I figured a lot of times a morning bite, no matter what time of year it is, a morning bite tends to happen on almost every lake. And the best way to take advantage of that is to start fishing right off the get-go. So I decided, you know what the heck, I'm just gonna run down to this bridge and just fish through it really quick and see if I can pick up an extra big bite.
All right, let's get them, buddy.
All right, hopefully we stumble into 20 pounds apiece or something.
Be nice. But that. Big one, come around the left side of it.
Get him in the net. Yes!
Nice.
Oh, that you scared me when he jumped over.
Yeah. Scared me too.
Dude. I told you, if I catch one, it's a big. Look at that fish. Dude, look how fat. It's probably 4. What a start. Wow. Wow. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. That's a fun way to start the morning.
Yeah, it is.
Water dropping.
Matt?
Nah, he's a tiny one. No, maybe not. Actually, he's not. Dude, he ran at me. I thought he was a tiny one. I thought he was like a 2-incher. Yeah. Dude, that's a decent one. Dude, I thought it was a little one because he ran straight to the boat. I thought he was like a 4-incher.
Oh, yeah?
And boom, first fish of the day is in the 4-pound class, exactly like what I wanted. So fished around the bridge for a little while longer, and it managed to pick up another solid keeper. But, you know, it's been about an hour or so, and it's been a while since my second bite, that second keeper that I picked up. And so it slowed down a lot, and this is the dilemma that I run into on this end of the lake, is that I generally don't get the number of bites. And so, you know, I decided at that point, you know what? I did what I came to do. I got my big bite. I even got an extra good keeper to go with it. So now I'm gonna go ahead, gamble, and run all the way back up the lake to where I got the most bites in practice.
You work too?
Never mind, he's little.
Short? I don't want to.
I will. No sense not checking him. It's free to check. He ain't gonna keep. Bye, bud. Just been swimming with it.
Matt?
I'm good. He'll be close. He will be close.
Just made a believer out of me.
I think he's gonna be 13 now.
Yeah.
That's fine. Hold on. Yes! Yes! Yes.
That's me on the shaky hand?
Yep. Look, it just fell off.
Oh,
That's lucky. Thank you, God.
how'd that happen?
Thanks for netting him. was coming. Sorry about that.
No problem.
That's another. Dude, he might not even measure. He's so round. Hold on. Net. Yes! Yes!
You're fine.
There it is.
You got 20 pounds right now.
I don't have 20 pounds, but
I'm thinking you got close to it.
I don't think so, dude. But I definitely got a big one and a limit to go with it. For that, I'm very, very thankful. Thank you so much for the net.
Yep.
Those are fat fish.
Yes! Get you some practice on that one.
And so make that long trek all the way up the lake. And it's always, your heart starts racing when you come around the corner, because as a tournament fishing, the worst feeling in the world is when you make a good run and you pull up and a guy is sitting on your spot. So I was just praying that when I got in there, that if I got to this pocket in particular where I shook off all these fish, that there wouldn't be a boat in there. And so I come around the corner and there was no one in there. So I eased my way in real slow. I knew I wanted to take my time and fish this spot, and it didn't take long to figure out that the fish were still there. Pull up to my first waypoint where I shook one off, fire my shaky head up on the bank, and it starts swimming off. And so I managed to take advantage of those fish that I found in practice. It's not all the time that when you find fish in practice that it works out during the event, but it worked out great today. I filled out my limit and it was a solid one. I knew I had a decent bag, and that felt amazing to have a limit of solid fish.
Yeah. Dude, that was so cool. What was that? I saw him wake out to get it. Like took one off that log yesterday. I got it.
I took that little one off that log that you took the last one off.
Yeah, I know, I saw that.
Now maybe you caught the buck.
Maybe.
You know what I mean?
So I decided I'm gonna try to run this pattern in another creek where I hadn't really tried, but it's a creek I've caught them in the past. So I ran farther up the lake and went into this creek and spent a good amount of time trying to get on that bite again.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!
Go back and get it.
Giant one just blew up and missed it. My bait got hung and went reeled in, and a giant one, dude. Oh gosh.
Nothing really happened. Caught a few small fish. I did end up missing one quality fish on the bridge, and that one haunted me. Threw my bladed jig under the, tried to skip it under the bridge. It actually got dinged off the bridge, slapped in the water like a noob. So I'm like trying to reel it in to make another cast, and it comes up and a 4 or 5 pounder blows up on it and rips the skirt and the trailer off the chatterbait, but doesn't get the hook. And that was a big bummer. But you know, at this point in the day, it's like, well, what do? Do I keep sticking it out in this creek? It's not really happening. Or do I run back? And I decide, you know what? The time is right. A late afternoon bite could pick up. Maybe my chance to get another quality bite will be back by that bridge. So I run all the way back down to take off, head back into the back of the creek again, right there where we take off from, and fish around the bridge, don't get a bite, but decide to work my way back into the creek past the bridge to where it gets kind of shallow, and you know, it can get muddy, but the water was semi-clean. Even though it was low, it was warming up. That sun was pushing those fish shallow, and so I pulled out a wacky worm and a bladed jig. I pulled out a wacky rig Yamamoto Senko. It's a bait I have a ton of confidence in, and start firing it around. I was between pieces of wood that I would see that were highlighted back in this creek. I would pick up my bladed jig, and I'm running between one laydown and the next, and I feel a bite. I set the hook, and it's a good one. And I get him coming to the boat, but my hook set was kind of off, and so I'm just kind of trying to catch up with the fish. And my current gets in that, and as soon as he gets near the boat, he comes off. A good solid 3.5 pounder, a fish that would have really helped my bag came off right there. And I was pretty down, but I'm looking at the clock. We only got a few minutes left, but I see one last lay down on the corner, and so I pick up my wacky worm, and we troll over there, and I fire it to the end, and I just let it soak in that lay down. And I pick up, and she's swimming off with it. And I set the hook, fight that fish all the way to the boat, and this one stays on. It was another quality fish, and it was a critical call that I made in the last 5-10 minutes of fishing. Idle out of that creek and back to the launch, and that was the end of my tournament day.
Not as big as I need you to be, but you're decent.
That's the first one.
Yep. 33? I got a bag, so I don't think it's good enough. It's 5 fish though, so I have no idea honestly. 13. Or at least.
Jack Dice. Let's represent the Christian Motors out of 5 bass tournament limit for Jack. How you doing, Jack?
Doing good.
Good. Jack, that's a good bag of fish today, sir. Your fish are going away. 15 pounds even, put you in 4th place, tied for 4th. Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you.
So we ended up weighing 15 pounds on the dot, and good enough for a tie for 4th place. So I managed to grab a top 5 trophy, which was awesome. That always is super cool to bring home hardware, and a nice check. And all in all, it was a very solid event. Looking back at the decisions I made some really good ones. First decision was to run and just fish close and see if I could take advantage of an early morning big bite, and I did. I did exactly that. Happy to pick up a big fish on the bladed jig early, and I made a good decision to wait on those fish up the lake. It was good to kind of let that warm up, and I knew I couldn't beat someone to that spot if they had found it anyway. So I think I made the best use of my time there. Where I really, I think, made an error was instead of running, I had the decision in my mind, do I run back down the lake or do I run up to another creek and try to duplicate the pattern some more? And I ended up running up to that other creek. Now, I had one big bite in there, but other than that I missed, other than that I had nothing. Nothing really happened up there. When I got back to the creek, it was immediate that sun had come out later in the afternoon. It was heating up and those fish were funneling to the back of the creek looking for places to spawn. And they were biting. I left them biting at the end of the day. So my only regret is that I wish I'd turned left instead of right. Instead of going farther up the lake, I wish I'd run back to take off where I knew the general size of fish tended to be better for me, and just see if I could have gotten the bigger bites more. You know, if I'd, instead of fishing it only for the last 45 minutes of the day, if I'd run and fished it the last 3 hours and gotten to actually fish everything back in that creek, who knows? I might have been able to call up some more times and have some even bigger bites. But that's tournament fishing. I was primarily throwing 3 baits in this tournament: a chatterbait, a shaky head, and a wacky rig Yamamoto Senko. And so the setups, again, very similar to the Lake Wiley if you saw that video. I was throwing that on a 7.2 medium heavy Summit for my chatterbait, 1/2 ounce jackhammer and green pumpkin. Throwing a shaky head, again, a 1/8 ounce, that's standard for me when I'm throwing shallow on the bank. Throwing June bug and green pumpkin, again, 2 solid colors. But the bait that really made a difference at the end of the day was a 5-inch Yamamoto Senko in green pumpkin, purple, and copper flake. And so that was my choice of bait, and it ended up paying off with the critical fish at the end that really was the weight I needed to get inside that top 5 and take home a top 5 piece of hardware trophy. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you guys want to see more like it, be sure to subscribe. God bless. Tight lines. We'll see you next time on Up and Coming. Plug in my own show.